The Orlando sun beat down. It was August 23, 2023, a Wednesday. Many sought refuge from the heat. Some found it in places like the SeaCoast Bank. Air conditioning offered a welcome chill, but inside one particular branch, something else was brewing. A situation was developing. A call would soon go out, a call to the police. Trouble, it seemed, had walked in right off the street. What brings a person to a bank on such a day? Many reasons, of course. Deposits, withdrawals, the usual financial errands. But this individual, the one who caught the staff's attention, had a specific purpose. A purpose that would soon become clear. He approached a teller. He had a check in his hand. He wanted to cash it. Seems simple enough, doesn't it? Yet, something felt off. Very off. This wasn't just another customer. This was different. The bank was a typical scene of midweek commerce. People going about their business. Transactions occurring smoothly, or so it seemed on the surface. But beneath that calm exterior, a sharp employee was observing, listening, thinking. They noticed the cues, the subtle signs that something wasn't quite right. The suspect presented the check. He wanted cash. A significant amount, apparently. The bank teller, let's call them Alex, took the check. Standard procedure. But Alex was more than just a processor of transactions. Alex had instincts, and those instincts were now screaming. Something about the check, or perhaps the man himself, raised a red flag. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a puzzle. What was it that tipped Alex off? The check, the signature, the amount, or the demeanor of the man standing there? Perhaps a little too eager, or a little too nervous. These are the subtle details that trained eyes pick up on. Bank staff see thousands of checks. They talk to hundreds of people. They develop a sixth sense for things that don't add up. This intuition is invaluable. It's a skill honed over time, protecting both the bank and its customers. Alex didn't immediately refuse, didn't immediately accuse. That could escalate things. Instead, Alex began a process of verification, a process of careful scrutiny, looking at the check, looking at the system, looking at the customer, all while maintaining a calm, professional demeanor. This composure is key in such situations. How do you keep a suspected scammer at the counter without raising suspicions? This is where the banker's cleverness shone. Alex couldn't just say, "Hold on, we think you're a fraud." That would send the suspect running. Instead, a believable excuse was required. Alex reportedly told the man there were computer issues. A classic delay tactic. Every minute gained was closer to the police arriving. The banker engaged the suspect in small talk. All the while, the silent alert had gone out. The suspect was being stalled expertly. So, what was the deal with this check? Why all the suspicion? Reports indicate it was a fraudulent check, not just a small one either. The suspect was allegedly trying to cash a check for nearly $2,000. Specifically, $1,965. That's not pocket change for most people, and it's certainly an amount that warrants careful scrutiny by any financial institution, especially if other factors seem off. This was a significant sum. The check itself likely had telltale signs of forgery, or perhaps it was drawn on an account with insufficient funds, or an account that didn't exist, or maybe the name on the check didn't match the identification provided, or the business name it was supposedly from raised questions. These are all common tactics used by fraudsters. They hope to slip through the cracks, hope that a busy teller won't look too closely, hope that their con will succeed, but not this time. Bank officials, upon closer examination, confirmed their suspicions. The check was no good. It was part of an attempt to defraud the bank. Check fraud is a serious crime. The minutes ticked by. The banker continued the ruse, and then they arrived. Officers from the Orlando Police Department, walking into the cool, conditioned air of the SeaCoast Bank. Their presence immediately changed the atmosphere, from quiet tension to a more overt investigation. They had been briefed. They knew why they were there. They were there to talk to a man who was patiently or impatiently waiting to cash a check. The officers approached the counter, calm, professional. They identified themselves. They asked the man if he would mind stepping aside to answer a few questions. Imagine his surprise, or perhaps not surprise, perhaps a dawning realization that things were not going according to plan. His plan, whatever it may have been. The officers were not accusatory at this stage. They were gathering information, trying to understand the situation, as they are trained to do. The interaction began. The suspect, identified as Konrad Zierak, was now face-to-face with law enforcement. No longer just a bank teller, but uniformed officers with badges and questions, lots of questions, about the check, about where he got it, about why he was cashing it. When the police started asking questions, Konrad Zierak's story reportedly began to change. This is often a red flag for investigators. Truth is usually consistent. Lies, however, can be harder to keep straight, especially under pressure. Initially, Zierak allegedly claimed he was homeless. He said he was simply cashing the check for a friend he had just met. This friend had supposedly promised him $100 for his trouble. $100 to cash a nearly $2,000 check for a brand new friend? Does that sound plausible to you? It certainly raised eyebrows among the officers. They pressed further. Who was this friend? Where could they find him? Zierak, according to reports, couldn't provide many details. The story seemed thin, very thin, like a poorly constructed alibi in a television drama. But this was real life, with real consequences, and real officers asking the questions. Then, the narrative allegedly shifted again. Zierak later claimed he had done construction work for a man he didn't know very well. Now, it's very important to state this clearly. Despite the suspicious circumstances, despite the changing stories, Konrad Zierak, like anyone accused of a crime in this country, is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This is a cornerstone of our justice system, a fundamental right. It means the burden of proof lies entirely with the prosecution. They must convince a judge or jury beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime was committed, and that the suspect committed it. Arrest is not a conviction. Being charged is not a finding of guilt. Zierak was indeed arrested that day. He was charged with uttering a forged instrument and grand theft. These are serious accusations. But they are, at this stage, just accusations. He will have his day in court. He will have the opportunity to present a defense, to challenge the evidence against him, to have legal representation. This process is designed to protect the innocent and to ensure fairness for all. The investigation continues even after an arrest. Detectives gather more evidence, they interview witnesses, they analyze documents, the fraudulent check itself will be scrutinized, its origin traced, the accounts involved examined. Much of what we know about incidents like this often comes to light through video footage. In this case, body-worn camera footage from the responding Orlando police officers and potentially bank security footage plays a role. Law enforcement agencies are increasingly releasing such footage. Why do they do this? Primarily for transparency. It allows the public to see with their own eyes how officers interact with individuals, how situations unfold. This transparency is vital for building and maintaining public trust. When people can see the events for themselves, it can help to dispel rumors, to provide context, to show the professionalism or sometimes the challenges that officers face. It's not always a complete picture, of course. Cameras don't capture everything. They don't capture thoughts or intentions, but they provide a valuable, objective record of events as they happen, from a particular perspective. The footage in cases like the SeaCoast Bank incident serves an informative purpose. It educates the public about the types of crimes occurring in their community. It shows how criminals operate, and it demonstrates how law enforcement and vigilant citizens, like the bank teller here, can work together. This incident at SeaCoast Bank in Orlando serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance and the critical role that community members play in preventing crime. The banker in this story wasn't a law enforcement officer. They were an ordinary citizen, doing their job. But their alertness, their quick thinking, and their courage to act made all the difference. They didn't just protect the bank, they helped protect the entire community. Fraudsters rely on people not paying attention. They rely on victims being too trusting or too busy to notice the red flags. But when individuals are aware, When they are observant, the scammers' jobs become much harder. This is true for bank tellers, for shop assistants, for anyone who handles transactions. But it's also true for all of us in our daily lives, online, on the phone, or in person. Being cautious is not being paranoid. It's being smart. Reporting suspicious activity is crucial. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't hesitate to report it to your supervisor, to the bank, to the police.